so much for coming out to meet with us today. As you can tell by the crowd, we have a lot of interest in Sumter County in having a good, strong Democratic candidate for Senate to run against Rick Scott. We know that you swung a district in South Florida from red to blue and served in Congress. Could you please take a few minutes to introduce yourself, explain how you envision your campaign, and what your priorities will be during your Senate terms?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. You guys are a good-looking crowd. I see a lot of blue out there. Who says the village is not for the taking? I don't know. I've been looking forward to coming here. My name is Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. Many people call me DMP, which stands for Don't Mess With My People. And you are all my people. Every Floridian, despite political affiliation, everyone is part of my people. I am a mother of 3. My husband is here. I'm so grateful that he supports me every step of the way. I'm a Latina. I'm a former congresswoman, and I'm running to defeat Rick Scott and be your next U.S. Senator. I did not take the decision to run for Senate lightly because my youngest, my 15-year-old still lives at home. My mother lives at home with me. But I'm running for the same reasons why I got into this in 2018. My community in South Florida, I was the associate dean at the medical school at the time. I had been working to expand access to good quality healthcare in underserved communities. And there was a Republican in my district, and this is why I think Barbie totally has it, and she's going to win this race. I'm going to make sure that please support your local candidates first. Holler for Hollerin, Ash, Barbie, you guys are great. We're gonna work together on this. It was at a time when the Republican, who had won in 2016 by 12 points, he was a 2-term, very popular Republican at the time, but he was voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And we rely heavily, this is a state that has the largest enrollment for the ACA. And so, despite people thinking that I could not beat him, my community knew that if we worked together, we could. And I was elected to be the first South American immigrant to ever serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. And that was because of people like you. And it's the same feeling that I get as I travel the state. We are going to make change happen in November. So many families are struggling across our state, like Ash mentioned, because of the skyrocketing property insurance rates. Seniors are being priced out of their homes. A lot of families can't afford to pay for their rent. But Rick Scott is someone that oversaw the largest Medicare fraud in the history of this country, used that money to buy his seat when he became governor, and then used $64 million to get to the Senate. He doesn't care. He has no idea what it's like for people that live on a fixed income, like my mom, like so many of you do with a Social Security check. That's why I'm running, and I know that together we are going to get this done.
You mentioned being a member of the Latina community. We know that Scott and the Republicans have tried to scare Latinx voters into voting Republican. What's your message for those voters?
You know, my story, the story of my mother who left everything behind, not knowing the language, bringing my sisters and me to this country to give us opportunities, it's why I'm here, right in front of you, running for U.S. Senate, and why I became a congresswoman. It's a story that really brings all of us together. It's the story that so many Latinos relate to. So many people leave their home countries because they can't feed their families. They come here to work. They come here for economic opportunities, for safety. And unfortunately, Republicans have tried to send this message that only they are going to protect economic opportunity, and then they turn around and vote every step of the way against our communities. There's a lot of disinformation that has been targeted against Latinos, but I want you all to know that Latinos still vote 2-1 for Democrats in the state of Florida. And we do. And I've been very present, you know, even before I served in Congress, but speaking directly to them in our native language, in Spanish media, Spanish radio, Spanish TV, talking about these issues. And so they immediately connect. But what is Rick Scott doing? We have 2 polls now that show me ahead of Rick Scott. One that was released in August, and another one. He has not released a poll because he knows he's losing. But you know what he's doing? He is starting to spend money, starting this week, targeting Latino voters, lying, saying that you know, he wants to protect this country from socialism. Well, it is insulting for this corrupt politician to even try and link me to that. When I left Ecuador, when I have family living in Venezuela, and I know exactly what a social dictatorship looks like, and it's not what we're doing here as Democrats. We're protecting democracy. It's him playing into the hands of Vladimir Putin by blocking any aid to our allies, and they're the ones that are propping dictatorships in Latin America. So he has no idea who he has running against him. I'm going to show him. My husband inspired me. Yeah, I don't think he has any.
How did the Supreme Court ruling, the Florida Supreme Court rulings from last week, change your race, if at all?
So from the very beginning, I'm a woman, I'm the youngest of 4 sisters, I have 2 daughters, I have a son. This has been an integral issue since they overturned Roe v. Wade. When I was in Congress, I worked to empower young women and women across the country, making sure that they have access to equal pay. I mean, the attacks against women go hand in hand with the attacks on democracy. I have said that it's no surprise that as they're attacking our rights as women, they're trying to destroy democratic institutions, because when we organize, when we create a movement, we win. And we create stronger democratic institutions. So on Monday, we had 2 rulings, as you all know. One of them that's very concerning to me, which is enacting a 6-week abortion ban, a near total abortion ban, when most women don't know they're pregnant, with hardly any exceptions to rape and incest. A ban that Rick Scott said he would have proudly signed into law if he was governor. This is an issue of safety for women. I'm concerned we're going to see a rise in maternal mortality rates. It's an issue that is integral for the dignity of a woman to make her own choices, a choice that should be between, like Anna says, and I've been saying this, between her family, her doctor, and her faith. It has to be completely free of government intervention. And as a Hispanic woman who fled, who has seen those regimes, what a government looks like when they're dictating every aspect of our lives, let me just say, Latinos are going to vote for Amendment 4. But it'll mean nothing if you all come out and vote for that, to enshrine it into law, and then Rick Scott goes back to the Senate and pushes for a national abortion ban. So I know you're not going to let that happen, and let me just say right now, neither am I. And
back to healthcare. We know Rick Scott's record of healthcare is opposing Medicaid expansion, committing Medicare fraud, and trying to take down the Affordable Care Act. What is your record on affordable healthcare retention?
so you can imagine, after spending years working to expand access to healthcare, it was integral to the work that I did in Congress. So when I was in Congress, I actually wrote a bill that passed the House to expand Medicare coverage, while Rick Scott was actually writing his 12-point plan to sunset, eliminate Medicare, Social Security. He's been leading the effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We know that that's what Trump wants to do, and he's right there behind him, and he has eyes on becoming the next Senate Majority Leader, and that would mean eliminating Medicare and Social Security. These are benefits that you have worked your entire lives paying into them. This is not a handout. This is something that you deserve to retire with dignity and to get good quality health care. If Rick Scott got his way, it would send 40% of seniors into poverty. I have seen my mom struggle with her health in this past year, in and out of the hospital. We have to fix the healthcare system, but it starts by protecting the most vulnerable, and it's seniors living in the state of Florida.
violence, of course, is very often at the top of everyone's mind. How do you propose that we stop gun violence in Florida?
This is a very personal issue for me, and I remember in 2018, after we experienced one of the worst mass shootings, 2 years after Pulse at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, I had already been running for Congress, and I hadn't shared my story, but after that shooting, I found it necessary for everyone to know that I lost my father to gun violence. I was 24 when I received that call that my father had been shot and he died from that shooting. And it's really a moment that changed my life forever. And I met with many of the families just a week after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I told them that my commitment was to them, that I was going to do everything in my power to get to Congress and make sure that we pass gun safety legislation. And so I made that my mission. We passed the universal background check bill in the House of Representatives, first time in over 20 years, but it didn't go anywhere in the Senate. And I realized how important my one vote was at that moment in the House. Many people say, yeah, but you're only one vote. It's that one vote that can make a difference in the lives of Americans and the lives of our children. I think it is the greatest moral failure of our lifetime that we allow politicians like Rick Scott remain in office and do nothing as our children continue to be killed to this country. I am making that commitment to you right now as a mother, as a survivor, as someone that has met thousands of families when in Congress, after Congress. I've been working with Gabby Giffords in the state and across the country on gun violence reform, that we have to pass the universal background check bill in the Senate. We have to ban assault weapons. They should be in places of war and not on the streets, killing our children.
Okay, if we just circle back real quick to Social Security and Medicare and Rick Scott's plans for them. Can you give us a little more specificity as to how you would fight them and how else you would try to prop up the ACA?
Well, one of the things that we did, and this is very important for everybody to remember, when we were in the House, didn't go in the Senate, but then finally President Biden was able to do this with Congress. We allowed Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. If you remember, families were paying up to $400 a month paying for their insulin. Now it's capped at $35. That was for Medicare recipients. But what happens is when you do that, immediately insurance companies realize and pharmaceuticals realize that they're going to have to lower the prices of their drugs. We did a lot of oversight in interviewing pharmaceutical companies why the price of medicine is so out of reach for so many families. So I would continue to reduce the price of medicine. That's integral for Medicare and also for families across the states. We need to expand coverage. We need to cover dental. We need to cover eyesight. So many people have to actually buy now another plan, Medicare Advantage programs. We need to protect Social Security, and it starts by ensuring that those checks actually are adjusted for inflation, which this administration did starting last year. We need to protect it and look at ways that we can actually make it solvent. I know that Republicans love to say that we're going to run out of money. No, no, no. If people pay their fair share, we are going to protect Social Security.
Thank you so much. We realize you're so busy as a candidate for Senate, and thank you so much for coming here, sharing your campaign.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you all. Look, just remember what we can do together. Don't let anyone define. Their hate is trying to define who we are. We can't allow that. Don't let fear paralyze us. I know they're loud, but there's more of us. We are more united than anyone understands here in the state of Florida.
Because I want the country to know who we are here in Florida, okay? Here we go.